The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, welcome to the Youth Point in Time Count. This is the training for drop-in centers. So any drop-in center conducting the Youth Point in Time Count on Thursday, January 24th, or Friday, January 25th. So the Youth Point in Time Count, this is an extended version of the Point in Time Count, and it's a one-day snapshot of all the unaccompanied youth and youth-led families experiencing homelessness and housing instability. This is sort of an extension of the PIT count that happens overnight, and we know that we don't find a lot of youth during the overnight hours, and so we have this extended time to find youth in the community who are experiencing homelessness or housing instability. This is really critical. This data informs funding decisions. It also raises public awareness, and it tells us more about the community we serve, the people we serve. So we do this on the coldest point of the year, and this is because we see more people come in for services during this time, and it's easier for us to count them. So we just want to talk about scheduling for the youth point in time count and how it works with the general point in time count. So you'll see on here the PIT shelter count and PIT unsheltered count happens over the night of Thursday, January 24th to January 25th. And then our youth count starts at 3 p.m. the day before and ends at 3 p.m. the day after. So for youth, we have 24 hours to count, but we do stop counting during the general PIT time, and that's just for deduplication purposes. We want to know that if we count a youth in our youth count, they won't be counted at the same time in the shelter count. It's how we did our methodology for the count. So we ask that for the youth count, you're either going to count on Thursdays from 3 to 7 or on Fridays from 8 to 3. So this is just a list of everyone who's participating in the youth point in time count this year, who is counting in a drop-in center. This is so you can know who is counting where and when. And we are really excited that La Casa is having a pizza party and advertising it. And so we hope to get a lot of youth in the door to be counted there and everywhere. So we just want to jump into the difference between, just what are you doing for the PIT count? And in the PIT count, we're filling out surveys. And for people who don't want to be surveyed, we're collecting tallies. So we hope that in your drop-in center, you're going to survey all the youth who are there. The only youth who you wouldn't survey is youth who choose not to be surveyed. And in that case, you could just tally them. The survey takes about 10 minutes, and staff should complete the surveys for the youth. It could be staff or a trusted youth who is an assistant or a youth leader in your agency, but the survey should be given by someone and that person should write down the answers. The survey isn't designed to be self-taken or written by yourself. And then I just want to reiterate that the tally is for people who choose not to be surveyed, and you can complete the tally by observation. So one person only gets one item, and that's either a survey or a tally. You would not tally someone you've already surveyed. And I'm going to hand it off to Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone. So as Carrie mentioned, you will have a youth-specific point-in-time survey. So this youth point-in-time was developed in conjunction with the point-in-time subcommittee and also with a youth point-in-time work group as well, which was made of many of the providers with us today and also with our youth advisory board. So as you can see, the first 5 questions ask the same information as on your tally form. So in the event that you do start a survey and maybe the young person wishes to stop, please make sure that you either finish completing the first 5 questions or revert to the tally form. One thing that we do want to note about the survey is please make sure that you complete the time and the location, even if it is just the address of your agency of the drop-in. We want to make sure that we know where this youth completed the survey, and also your information or the information of the individual that is helping complete the survey. We do this in the event that there is any information or any questions that's kind of skipped over, or if DFSS has any questions about the information that is provided on the tally, they know who to call and ask for some clarifying information. Because as you heard, Carrie, we are doing the youth point in time count over 2 days. We do need to include a mechanism to help us deduplicate, which just means that if the individual completed the survey maybe on Thursday and then went to another event on Friday, and they didn't disclose this, by just providing their first, middle, and last initials as well as their date of birth, will help us just deduplicate that individual. So for the purpose of the webinar, we won't be going through the entire survey, but you can always feel free to reach out to me, Elizabeth, or Carrie with any additional questions. But one thing that you will know that throughout the survey, each question has a don't know or prefer not to answer. So we use these in the event that the young person, if they say don't know, maybe they're not sure when they started experiencing housing instability. So if the individual notice that they just don't know, they don't have the recollection, please, we would encourage you to use that option. Prefer not to answer is when you see that the participant declines to answer. Because our survey does contain questions of a sensitive nature, for example, we'll ask about foster care involvement, juvenile justice or adult justice involvement. Sometimes individuals do not want to disclose that information, and that's okay. If you see that the individual declines to answer, you would just select the prefer not to answer option. And again, at any given point, because the survey is a complete voluntary process, if the individual chooses to stop the survey halfway through there, please honor and respect that decision, and just feel free to just go up through the rest of the questions and indicate prefer not to answer, so that we know that it wasn't just that the staff or the youth leader forgot to answer those questions, but that the individual decided to discontinue the survey. Because the survey is set up in a manner where we will not specifically ask in the survey if an individual is experiencing chronic homelessness, we cover this in around 3 to 4 questions. Because HUD's definition of chronic homelessness is a little bit difficult to capture in just one set question. The individual could be residing in a place not meant for human habitation. They must have a disabling condition. And in order to meet the chronic homeless definition, they must be continuously homeless for the last 12 months or have a minimum of 4 occasions of homelessness over the last 3 years that equals a minimum of 12 months. Because that's a very difficult thing to ask in just one single question, you'll see that that was spread out throughout, I believe, 3 to 4 questions. So we do encourage you to please not skip over the questions and provide a response to each of them. So that way here on the back end, we'll be able to calculate if the individual met the chronic homeless definition. So DFSS is a point-in-time lead entity, so they will be completing all the back-end data entry. So please keep that in mind, and this is why we ask that you do not skip any questions. And the nice thing about this year's survey is that it does allow an area for calculation, so we know that sometimes, if you ask an individual, like, how many episodes of homelessness did you have, they'll probably look at you with a weird look. So the questions are designed to read in a much more friendly way. In addition, we do encourage you, sometimes it's helpful to prompt individuals to say, well, like, what season was it? Was it hot outside and so forth, to kind of gauge and to see, like, around the time period that the individual might have had a first episode or a second episode. And we know that this happens through the conversation, so just make sure to feel free to use that area to write down some calculations, and you can always come back at the end of the interview and just complete that total length that they were experiencing homelessness. A couple of survey tips. As we mentioned, the survey is not mandatory. It is completely voluntary. If the person chooses to participate, that's great. If they refuse, then we would encourage you to use the tally form. We encourage you not to deviate from the survey. The survey was designed in a way that we will put the less sensitive questions at the beginning and really dive into some of those more sensitive questions toward the end. Hopefully by then a rapport has been built and it wouldn't seem very intrusive for us to start with those type of questions such as, your foster care involvement. Please do not add any new questions. We love the input of everyone in adding new questions. However, if one individual writes a complete new question for us, unfortunately, we will not be able to take that information back at DFSS and include it. But we do welcome any suggestions for new questions for the 2020 Youth Point in Time Count. And the last one, please bring back all the forms, even if they're dirty or damaged. So we know sometimes, we have accidents, we may spill coffee or something, or we may step on some forms. But please ensure that you do bring back all these forms. It is part of the methodology. We want to ensure that the form was blank and it wasn't that maybe 10 individuals completed the tally, or maybe you had 10 surveys completed and they were just lost. So in that event, we do ask that everyone, if you did bring up a packet from DFSS, please make sure that you bring it back to them regardless of their state. A couple of more survey tips. We do encourage that the survey be administered by a staff or a youth leader. The survey was not designed for someone to self-report, so we do ask that you have a staff person or youth leader administer the survey. Please make sure to ask all the questions on the survey. As you heard a little bit earlier, each question has a prefer not to answer or don't know option in the event that the individual indicates any of those two. Please record the answers that the individual gives to you without modifying. So for example, if someone says that they're 23, but you believe they're much younger, please indicate on the survey that they are 23. And again, the survey is not mandatory. If they choose to participate, that is wonderful. And if not, you can always feel free to use the tally form. On your screen, you'll see a sample of the youth tally. One side is dedicated for single individuals and the other side is for youth-led families. One thing we will note that if you did pick up a packet from DFSS, they are printed on a nice cardstock piece of paper. And one side is for singles and the other one is for families. So if you flip it over, which I think it's a lot of our instinct to just flip it over and start continuing to jot down information, please note that the other side is for families. In the event that you're capturing just single individuals, please make sure that you start a new tally. As you can see on the screen, the tally forms have gender, age, race, ethnicity, Latino origin, and the location. And all of these have a number associated. So please make sure that you honor the codes that are for each column. For example, if you have 10 males, please make sure that you indicate the male as a number 1 and not the letter. This just helps with data entering here at the back end. We know that, it's someone human on the other end data entering this. So we do ask that you do abide by the codes just to help the data entry process. Again, for location, if you can feel free to write down your address for that and just make sure that you have the time as well. On your screen, you'll see the samples for the families or our parenting youth. As you can see, there's a line dividing the example. Although that is a great way to see where you can start your actual writing in for your parenting youth. We do encourage you that once you have completed a youth-led household, that you use a dash or a line to divide the household. So for example, if your first parenting youth-led family was a family of 3, we encourage you, 1, to start off with the head of household for that family. And then once you complete the 3 lines for each individual, that you do a line to just divide the families. This helps for us to know that that's a family of 3, and then your next one would be a family of 4, and so forth. All right, a couple of tally tips. Please do not tally anyone that has been surveyed. If a young person is sleeping, unapproachable, or refuses to engage in the survey, please use the tally form. The tally is based on observation only. We do encourage you to use your best guess in the event that you don't know some of those characteristics, and to use the number code from the column header. Please make sure to indicate the address and the streets. We really do encourage you to indicate these streets intersect. It's very helpful for us to just know. And, if there's any concern about that, maybe you're not sure, you can always feel free to write down the address. Please provide the time and your contact information. In the event that DFSS has any questions about any of the information, they will give you a call just to clarify the information. And then I'll hand it back over to Carrie.
So I am here to talk to you about when you can turn in your surveys and tallies. So we have given you these surveys and tallies, and you'll notice that they all are numbered, and we need to receive each numbered survey back. So no matter what happens to your surveys and tallies, please bring them back in. They can be wet, they can be folded, you can write void on them if you've messed up, but bring them all back in to here at DFSS. Probably the easiest way for you to bring them in is to send them in on the same day that you are returning your sheltered count. And that we put the time on here. It's from 1 p.m. to 4:30. If that works for you on Friday, please do that. Otherwise, you can return them on Monday, January 28th. If you have any questions or problems with this, give me a call give me a call. So we really need all those surveys and tallies back, every single one of them. One exception is the Center on Halsted. You're receiving your surveys and tallies by PDF, and you can just scan those and send them back to me. You don't have to bring in the original paper copies, but you can if you want to. So here are our two contacts. You can feel free to reach out to us if you have questions about this training, questions that come up when you're delivering the survey, questions about returning the surveys. Just give us a call or shoot us an email, and we're happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you so much for helping us out with this. We couldn't do it without you. Oh, we have a whole slide about how important you are. You really are an instrumental part of the count, and we couldn't do this without all of you stepping up to volunteer to help us with the count, and we really appreciate it. We also ask that if you could spread the word about the youth count just to get more people in your drop-in centers on those days. I know we're really close to the day of the count, but I think everything helps, and the more youth we find, the more we know about the population we serve, and it's critical to what we do. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call.
And Steve. Oh my gosh, that was weird.